name's Bon Bennett. I'm taking a public speaking class. Today I'm going to talk to you guys about the two-party system, some of the issues I have with it, and then some of what I think can be fixes for it. Let's see, back when our democracy was created, our current system of representatives was the best thing that we could have had. The population was very spread out. There was no way to communicate across long distances in a timely manner. So it made sense to have people who would represent all the different towns and cities and states across the country. Daily life has changed a lot since then. Nowadays, the political system's kind of been hijacked by just two parties. There's not really any diversity or really any compromise in the system anymore. I think there's ways we can modify the system, keep it a democracy, but give more power back to the people and end some of the abuse. We only have so much time, so I'm going to talk in broad terms. But I just hope to at least paint a little bit of a picture of some of the issues I'm talking about and some possible fixes for it. First thing I'm going to talk about is the origin of the two parties. It's nothing new to us, but there was a time when it wasn't that way. We used to have 4 or 5 dominant parties who would work together. But during the 1790s, we began to see 2 strongly opposed parties become dominant at every level of government. And it was very unique when it happened. At that time, it was the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans. The Federalists were known as the elite party of the upper class, and the Democratic Republicans, or what we call the Republicans now, were known more as the workers or the common man's party. According to ushistory.org, all the founding fathers of the country were torn on this issue of only having 2 dominant parties. They thought it could be useful for working out certain issues, but they didn't think it would be good if it lasted. That's kind of what we're going to talk about, is some of the issues from the two-party system lasting to our current times, and maybe some ways to fix it. So some of my issues with it is there's too many complex issues in the country now for only 2 parties. We have, according to the Census Bureau, we have nearly 350 million people in the country, and for some reason we're putting all of them into one of 2 stables. There's no diversity with this system. Every issue has 1 of 2 opinions, and no one seems to be able to blend them together at all. For instance, you can't be, if you're pro-capitalism, but you're also okay with LGBT rights, there's no politician that supports both those issues. Also, if you support the Second Amendment, but you also support religious organizations not being able to fund politicians, there's no politicians who support both those rights. There's several issues that don't get addressed because the party platforms don't allow their party members to address issues outside of their agenda. If any politician does sway too far away from the agenda, they just get casted out or sent out or ridiculed by their party members. Let's see. When you only have 2 parties in the country, it creates a lot of what I call tribalism. So people stick strictly to their party no matter what, even if they don't think about all the issues. They'll automatically back the party that they like better. See, it creates a us versus them mentality, and creates a real rift in the population. Nobody's willing to talk to each other about any type of compromise. All they want to do is tell you how you're wrong and how they're right. This encourages lots of fighting and no compromise. So the regular people end up getting left out to dry, while the big politicians are bickering over things that don't matter. Another major issue, probably the biggest issue, is that having only 2 parties is too easy to corrupt. All the special interest groups and the major donators pretty much get to decide on every agenda that we have. When there's only 2 outlets for all this money to go to, there's, like I said, no diversity. So whoever has the most money gets to pick the agenda on one side, and whoever has the most money on the other side gets to pick that agenda. Essentially, this leads the politicians to be motivated by the money they can make instead of helping the people. They'll more pander to the people for the votes while using the agenda pushed by the people with money. Now, these are just personal opinions of mine, but I have some possible alternatives. One, I think, would be updating how we vote. I don't think all the representatives we have are necessary anymore. Nowadays, we can communicate and as quick as we can talk across the country. So any of us with a social security number or license number could have an individual ID to speak about issues and vote in real time. The current system is just outdated. When we can all vote for ourselves, we don't need a representative anymore. It would reduce the number of representatives, which alone would save money, and it would be less people taking money to steer the direction of the country. And I think if everybody is voting on all the issues themselves, it's going to force the voters to pay more attention to all the issues. When they're the ones whose votes are deciding everything instead of just what gets put through to them, I think they'll take more time to focus on the issue and what they actually think is best as opposed to what someone's telling them is best. I think another fix for that could be getting all the money out of politics. They're still allowed to receive kickbacks. They're allowed to receive gifts. They're allowed to use donations for personal funds. I think all that needs to be rid of. They should receive nothing but a salary, and most of their salary should be reduced. I think if you took all the money out of it, all the big donations and fancy gifts, then more honest people would get into politics, and the greedy people would not be incentivized to join politics in the first place. I think to implement this, you would need to have stiff punishments for anyone who didn't follow the new guidelines. If someone did get caught receiving gifts, they'd need a more harsh punishment than just leaving the office. They would have to face legal repercussions. Something I personally think would be a great idea to help stop all the corruption is just putting a spending cap on the political parties' organizations. If each party could only spend so much per year, we wouldn't have only two dominant parties. So it would level the playing field. According to the Federal Election Commission, just between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in the last election, they spent nearly $2 billion just on their campaigns. That's not the whole party, that's just their campaigns. Hillary Clinton had $1.3 billion spent. Donald Trump had almost $700 million. And neither one of those are even as much as Obama spent during the 2012 election. So when you think about all this money just going into two people, I think it needs to be limited. They shouldn't be allowed to spend that much money. If all the parties, I personally feel like 6 or 8 parties, how they do in a lot of countries in Europe, would be a lot better. If they were all allowed to spend the same amount of money, they'd all be on a level playing field, and we'd see more diverse opinions and diverse parties. I think a part of having more parties with the same amount of funding, that would eliminate some of that tribalism people have. When there's, say, 6 or 8 different parties, the people can choose between different ideas they like from the different parties. They won't have to vote all for one party. In short, I just think the system is outdated. It's stuck in the 1700s, and it can be updated in a lot of different ways. These are just my personal thoughts on how we can fix some of that. That's it. Thank you.
Nice. You get me